Today I'm working on a 2002 Dodge Dakota. We're going to replace the brake lines that go from the caliper to the hard line that runs to your master brake cylinder. So what I would do, number one, loosen up these lug nuts prior to lifting the vehicle off the ground. And you want to jack the vehicle up for safety purposes. Have a jack stand that the vehicle rests on. You don't want to rely solely on a jack. Next thing you want to do, if you have access to it prior to taking off, a few things. Spray the bolts that you're going to be taking off throughout the project with some rust eating solution such as WD-40, and just kind of let it eat away during the time that it takes you to get to that portion of the project. Now that the tire is off, you get a better view of what we're taking off here. The line that feeds off the caliper, it goes all the way up, has two connection point bolts here, and onto the master line that feeds the master brake cylinder. And as we work through this project, we are going to leak some brake fluid, so do your best to be environmental friendly. Get yourself a bin or bucket there, or a pan that will catch all that fluid that leaks. It may be easier to disconnect and remove this plastic rain guard, so go through each hole, the little plastic prongs, grab a little screwdriver and pop them out. And they're connected right here by a really rusted bolt. I'm going to leave that in, but this gives me just enough access to remove this bolt right down here. It's a 12 millimeter. Once you get it loose, tighten it back up. Don't let any of the fluid leak out. This is kind of the hardest portion of the project, is getting that bolt loose, which is your hard line to your master brake cylinder, as well as that little clip. You're going to pop that off. Next thing, this little clip here, this has got to come off. So just grab a little screwdriver and start prying that little thing off. You might need a hammer, and you might need to start on one side, go to the other, and basically pop that off. That's going to give you access to pull this whole line out of this little connection point. There's that clip there. I have the rain guard back up temporary in its original position just to get out of the way of these two bolts here, which are next. I'm gonna grab a 13 millimeter, and remember earlier I sprayed them, so they've had time to kind of eat through the rust, and they're rusty. This is an 02, so it's 14 years old. It's going to be a little tough getting off. Just be careful you don't want to strip it. Next is that bottom bolt on the lower portion of the rear side of the caliper. It's a 15 millimeter. And this one's going to be a little tough, but we did spray it earlier. So once I get that loose, which I just did, I'm going to tighten it back up. And the reason I'm doing that is because I've already prepped the bolt up here. That's loose, but retightened just slightly. I've got these two off, and I've got this loosened up. Now, I do that because I don't want to pull this one off, have it leaking the entire time I'm yanking at these two bolts and trying, as well as this one up here, to try to get them loose. So everything is loose and easy. Now I'm going to swap over to the new line here, and the new line is going to be put on pretty quickly after the old one comes off, and I just want to decrease the amount of fluid that leaks out of the system onto the ground or into the pan. This next step is really important. I'm going to begin taking off the entire line altogether. I'm going to start with this 15 millimeter bolt down at the caliper. I'm going to loosen it up. I'm going to take it off. There's two copper ring washers inside here. I'll set those aside. And it is going to drain a little bit of fluid, unless your line has deteriorated in such a way that it does not allow fluid to come out. At that point, I'm going to hop up top to the line here, and I'm going to disconnect the hard fitting here. This portion is going to push through this hard loop connection point, and you're going to pull that out. When it comes time, when you get that out, you want to immediately put the new one back through this little hole and into the hard fitting. At that point, you're going to connect it down, or you're going to feed that down here, but do not connect the line until you get fluid starting to drip out, because that will alleviate having to bleed this entire new line. These are the two copper washers I was talking about. Those will feed into each side of that little indent on the black portion of the line that goes on the caliper. Take note that on this tip here, there is a rounded portion that will feed through that inlet up in the wheel well where it connects to the hard line that goes to your master brake cylinder. If you do not align this rounded portion with the rounded portion on the inside connection, it will not feed through that connection point where this goes through, and then you reinstall the clip. Okay, so take mental note. If you can't get it through, it's because you haven't aligned it properly. Alright, so a little fluid's coming out. There's nothing wrong with that. Just going to take this whole piece out. Okay, set that aside. And I'm going to drop that down a little bit. I'm going to go up top, grab my 12mm back up here, and disconnect this part. Alright, old line is off, new line's coming on, and notice how I've got the hard line kind of fed through that little hole. Now again, that rounded part, you want to feed it through, okay, and you're going to tighten this up and feed it back through the line, okay, just like that. Okay, I quickly hand tightened the connection point up here and brought it all the way down. I want to show you real quick. See a little copper washer? It goes in the little divot there, and the backside of your connection here will go in there, and you can see that little divot right there where my pointer is. The bolt that came out of it earlier, you can put on the new copper washer, and you're going to tighten that in. Now the torque on this bolt specifically is 20, and what I recommend always is refer to your owner's manual just to get the correct specs. After that, you're going to hand tighten these bolts back in, secure those, and you're going to come down, just verify everything is secure, and you're going to tighten that as well back into the fitting. I hope the video helps. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and if you want to support the channel, go back to the channel. There's a blue support tab you can click on, support the channel, help us keep continuing making these cool videos. You're going to do the same thing on the opposite side, and after that you're going to have to bleed your brakes. I won't bore you with bleeding brakes in this video. There's many out there that will explain that. So again, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks.